Tommy was doing his best to stay awake in chemistry class. It was the kind of hot September afternoon that made everyone drowsy, even with the air conditioning running full blast. Mrs. Peterson was explaining something about molecular bonds, but Tommy's mind kept drifting. He glanced at the clock. Just 40 more minutes until he could head home. That's when the lights started acting weird. First they flickered. Just once. A few students looked up, mildly curious. Then they flickered again, this time staying dim for a full second before coming back on. Mrs. Peterson paused mid-sentence, looking up at the ceiling with a slight frown. "That's odd," she muttered. Tommy felt his stomach twist. He knew exactly what was about to happen. His dad had been warning the school about this for months. The third flicker lasted longer. The fluorescent lights buzzed angrily, dimmed to almost nothing, and then suddenly everything went dark. Completely dark. The hum of the air conditioning died. The smartboard went black. Even the small red light on the fire alarm panel went out. For a moment there was total silence. Then someone giggled nervously. Phone flashlights started popping on all around the classroom, casting weird shadows on everyone's faces. "Okay, everyone stay calm," Mrs. Peterson said, though she sounded pretty rattled herself. "I'm sure it's just a temporary power outage. The backup generator should kick in any second now." Tommy sat frozen in his seat. He counted in his head. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. The backup generator should have started by now. His dad had told him it was supposed to activate within 10 seconds of a power failure. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, nothing. Why isn't the backup working? Someone asked from the back of the room. Tommy knew why, but he didn't say anything. He thought about all those conversations at the dinner table. His father coming home exhausted, frustrated, trying to explain to Tommy's mom about the maintenance requests he'd submitted, the electrical system that was older than Tommy himself, the generator that needed servicing, the warning signs everyone kept ignoring because, well, everything seemed to be working fine, until it wasn't. Out in the hallway they could hear voices. Confused teachers. Students starting to get excited. For most of them, this was kind of fun, an unexpected break from class. But Tommy felt sick. This was going to be bad. Really bad. Mrs. Peterson opened the classroom door, letting in a bit of light from the windows in the hallway. "Everyone stay in your seats. I'm going to check what's happening." The moment she left, the classroom erupted. Kids were already pulling out their phones, texting friends in other classes, checking social media. Someone started playing music from their phone. A group of boys near the windows were making jokes about how they could just go home now. Tommy pulled out his own phone, but not to text his friends. He opened his calculator app and closed it. Opened his photos and closed them. He was stalling, trying to decide if he should text his dad. Would that make things worse? His father was probably already stressed enough without Tommy bothering him. He decided against it and instead opened YouTube. His watch history was filled with electrical engineering videos, circuit diagrams, troubleshooting guides, generator maintenance tutorials, videos about transfer switches and backup power systems. He'd been watching them for almost 2 years now, late at night when he should have been sleeping. His mom thought he stayed up playing video games. She had no idea her son was teaching himself skills that could actually matter. Not that they'd ever matter for someone like him. His family couldn't afford college. His grades were okay, but nothing special. He was just the janitor's kid. People were nice enough about it. But he saw the way some parents looked at his father during school events. Like he was invisible. Like his work didn't really count. Mrs. Peterson came back looking worried. "All right, everyone, we're going to evacuate to the gymnasium. The whole school has lost power, and they're saying it might be a while before they can fix it." As students grabbed their bags and filed out, Tommy moved slowly. The hallway was chaos. Teachers trying to organize students, freshmen looking confused and scared, seniors treating it like an early dismissal. The emergency lights should have been on, but Tommy noticed they were dark too. That meant the battery backup system had failed as well. This wasn't just a simple power outage. Something had gone seriously wrong with the whole electrical system. The gymnasium was a mess. Over 1,000 students packed in, sitting on the floor, talking loudly, their voices echoing off the high ceiling. With no air conditioning, it was already getting hot and stuffy. Tommy found a spot near the back and sat down, hugging his knees. He spotted his dad across the gym, standing near the main doors. His father looked small and worried, talking intensely with Principal Harrison. Tommy could see Harrison shaking his head, his face red and frustrated. His dad was gesturing, trying to explain something. Harrison cut him off with a sharp hand motion and walked away. Tommy watched his father stand there for a moment, shoulders sagging. Then his dad pulled out his phone and made a call, probably to the power company, or maybe the district maintenance supervisor, someone who could actually do something, because clearly his father's opinion didn't count for much around here. A text popped up on Tommy's phone from his best friend Kevin, who was somewhere else in the crowded gym. "Dude, this is crazy. Think they'll send us home?" Tommy texted back, "Maybe. It's pretty bad." What he didn't text was what he was really thinking. That his dad had submitted 3 separate work orders about the electrical system in the past 4 months. That there were documented problems with the transfer switch. That the backup generator hadn't been properly serviced in over a year. That every single warning had been ignored because fixing these things cost money. And the school board kept saying they'd deal with it next budget cycle. Next budget cycle. That's what they always said. Around him, kids were complaining about the heat. Some were trying to study using their phone flashlights. Others were just hanging out, happy for an excuse to miss class. Nobody seemed to understand how serious this actually was. September in their part of the country could hit 95 degrees. Without air conditioning, without even fans, the building would become unbearable in a few hours. Tommy watched as Assistant Principal Rodriguez walked to the center of the gym with a megaphone. She had to blow a whistle 3 times before everyone quieted down enough to hear her. "Listen up, everyone," her voice crackled through the megaphone. "We're working on getting the power restored as quickly as possible. The power company has been contacted. In the meantime, we need everyone to remain calm and stay hydrated. Teachers will be bringing water from the cafeteria. How long until it's fixed?" Someone yelled out. Rodriguez hesitated. "We're not sure yet. They're sending someone to assess the situation." A collective groan went through the crowd. Tommy checked his phone. It had been almost 30 minutes since the power went out. He thought about the electrical panel in the maintenance room. He'd seen it 100 times when visiting his dad at work. Complicated mess of circuits and switches and wires. His dad knew how to do basic stuff, but the really technical work? That required an electrician, a licensed professional who would need to diagnose the problem, order parts if necessary, and then fix it properly. That could take hours. Maybe the whole day. Tommy looked down at his phone again, at the YouTube app still open to his watch history. All those videos. All those late nights learning about electrical systems. He probably knew more about this stuff than most of the adults in this building. Except for the actual electricians. Not that it mattered. He was 16. He wasn't licensed to do anything. He couldn't help even if he wanted to. Even if he knew he probably could. His phone buzzed. His mom texting to ask if he was okay. If he'd heard about the power outage at school. The news was probably already spreading through the neighborhood. Tommy texted back that he was fine. Everything was under control. But looking around the hot, crowded gymnasium, watching his father still on the phone near the doors, seeing Principal Harrison pacing back and forth with an increasingly panicked expression, Tommy knew the truth. Nothing was under control at all. An hour had passed and the gymnasium felt like an oven. Principal Harrison stood in the main office, which wasn't much cooler, staring at 3 different phones on his desk. All of them were ringing. One was the district superintendent. Another was angry parents demanding answers. The third was the power company, and the news wasn't good. 6 hours minimum, the technician on the line was saying. "We need to send someone out to diagnose the issue, then figure out if it's our equipment or yours. If it's your internal system, we can't touch it. You'll need your own electrician." Harrison closed his eyes. 6 hours? With 1,200 students and staff. In 90-degree heat. Without air conditioning, without computers, without anything. "Can't you get here faster?" he pleaded. "Sir, we have 2 crews out right now dealing with a transformer issue on the east side of town. You're third in the queue. We'll get there as soon as we can." The line went dead. Harrison looked at Assistant Principal Rodriguez, who'd been standing in the doorway listening to everything. "This is a disaster," he said quietly. "We need to start calling parents. We'll have to send everyone home." "That's going to take forever," Rodriguez pointed out. "We have kids whose parents won't be able to pick them up for hours. And the buses aren't scheduled to come back until normal dismissal time. That's 4 hours from now. Harrison slumped in his chair. In his 15 years as principal, he'd never faced anything like this. Fire drills, lockdown procedures, even that time the cafeteria flooding. All of that he could handle, but this was beyond his control. Down in the maintenance room in the basement, Tommy's father stood staring at the circuit breaker panel like it might suddenly start working if he looked at it hard enough. He'd already tried everything he knew how to try. Reset the main breaker. Checked the connections he understood. Tested the backup generator manually. Nothing worked. The problem was deeper. Something in the transfer switch, probably. That was the component that was supposed to automatically switch the building from city power to generator power when the main electrical line failed. But the transfer switch was old and complicated, and he didn't have the training to diagnose it properly. He'd warned them. God, he'd warned them so many times. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his email, looking at the work orders he'd submitted. February 18th, April 3rd, July 22nd. All marked as pending review by the district maintenance supervisor. Pending review meant they'd gotten filed away and forgotten. His hands were shaking. This was going to be his fault somehow. He could already see how this would play out. The school board would demand answers. Someone would point out that he was responsible for building maintenance. Never mind that he'd reported the problems. Never mind that he'd been asking for help. When things went wrong, they needed someone to blame, and the janitor was an easy target. The door to the maintenance room creaked open. Tommy stepped inside, his t-shirt already soaked with sweat. "Dad?" His father turned, surprised. "Tommy? What are you doing down here? You should be with your class. They've got everyone in the gym. It's crazy up there." Tommy moved closer, looking at the open electrical panel. "Is this the problem?" "Yeah, something with the transfer switch, I think. But I can't figure it out." His father's voice cracked slightly. "I told them this would happen. I told them months ago." Tommy stood there, staring at the maze of wires and circuits. He recognized some of it from the videos he'd watched. The main breaker, the branch circuits, the thick cables that led to the transfer switch housing. "Can I look at it?" Tommy asked quietly. His father gave him a strange look. "Tommy, this isn't something you can just mess around with. This is serious electrical work." "I know, Dad, but I've been studying this stuff for a while now. I think I might be able to help." "Studying? What do you mean, studying?" Tommy pulled out his phone and opened YouTube, showing his father the watch history. Video after video about electrical systems, troubleshooting guides, circuit diagrams, transfer switch repairs. His father's eyes widened. "How long have you been watching these?" "Almost 2 years. Every night, pretty much. I got interested in it. Started with basic stuff, then got into more complicated things." Tommy looked at the panel again. "I know I'm not an electrician. I know I'm just a kid. But Dad, they're saying it could be 6 hours before anyone can even look at this. 6 hours in this heat? People could get sick. Maybe I can at least figure out what's wrong, even if I can't fix it." His father stood very still, processing this information. His son had been teaching himself electrical engineering. His 16-year-old son, who was supposed to be playing video games and worrying about homework, had been studying complex technical skills. Skills that his father had never learned. Skills that might actually matter right now. "Okay," his father said finally, "but you just look. Don't touch anything. These voltages can kill you." Tommy nodded and stepped up to the panel. His father handed him a flashlight. Tommy traced the circuits with his eyes, following the path of the wiring from the main breaker down to where everything connected to the transfer switch housing. He could see it now. The way everything was supposed to work. City power came in through the main line. If that power failed, a sensor in the transfer switch was supposed to detect the outage and physically switch the circuits over to the backup generator. The generator would start automatically and the building would stay powered. But something in that sequence had failed. The question was what? "Do you have a voltage tester?" Tommy asked. His father grabbed one from the toolbox and handed it over. Tommy carefully tested the main line. Dead. No power coming in from the city. That made sense. He tested the generator line, also dead. The generator wasn't running at all. "The generator didn't start," Tommy said. "That's weird. Even if the transfer switch failed, the generator should have tried to start." They walked over to where the backup generator sat in its small room off the maintenance area. Tommy had seen it before but never really paid attention to it. Now he looked at it with fresh eyes, thinking about all the generator maintenance videos he'd watched. He checked the fuel gauge. Full. Checked the battery connections. They looked fine. He found the manual start button and pressed it. The generator cranked but didn't catch. Tried again. Same result. What's wrong with it? His father asked. Tommy thought back to one of the videos he'd watched. A troubleshooting guide for diesel generators. There was a sequence of things to check. Fuel, battery, starter motor, fuel pump, and then, "Where's the fuel shutoff valve?" Tommy asked. His father pointed to a red valve near the fuel line. Tommy went over and looked at it closely. It was turned perpendicular to the fuel line. Shutoff position. Dad, this is closed. The generator can't run without fuel flow. What? That's not right. I never closed that. Tommy checked the nearby wall where maintenance logs were supposed to be posted. He found what he was looking for. A service report from 8 months ago. The generator had been serviced by an outside contractor. At the bottom of the form, in small print. Note: fuel valve closed for winter storage per standard procedure. Must be reopened before next scheduled test. Only there hadn't been a next scheduled test. The contractor had closed the valve and nobody had ever opened it again. Tommy reached for the valve and turned it in line with the fuel pipe. Open position. Then he went back to the generator and hit the start button again. This time the generator coughed, sputtered, and then roared to life. The deep rumble of the diesel engine filled the small room. His father's face lit up. You did it. You got it running. But Tommy was frowning. Dad, the lights still aren't on. The generator's working, but the power's not transferring to the building. They hurried back to the electrical panel. The generator status light was green now, showing it was producing power. But the building was still dark. The transfer switch still hadn't switched. Tommy studied the panel again, thinking hard. The transfer switch was supposed to be automatic. When city power failed and generator power became available, it should switch over on its own. But it hadn't. Why? He thought about the videos he'd watched about transfer switches. There were different types. Some were purely mechanical. Some were electronic. Some required a control signal. Dad, where's the control panel for the transfer switch? His father pointed to a small box mounted on the wall near the main panel. Tommy opened it. Inside was a simple electronic controller with a few indicator lights. One light was red. Fault was printed next to it. Below the fault light was a reset button. Tommy looked at his father. I think the transfer switch might have detected a problem and went into fault mode. Like a safety feature. If I reset it, it might switch over to generator power. Or it might not work at all, his father said. There might be a real fault. An actual problem that the reset won't fix. Yeah, Tommy admitted. But we won't know unless we try. His father hesitated. They were way beyond his comfort zone now. This was technical work that should be done by someone with training. Someone with a license. Someone who knew what they were doing. Not a janitor and his teenage son who learned everything from YouTube. But 6 hours. That's how long it would take for a professional to even show up. 6 hours of heat and chaos and parents getting angrier by the minute. Do it, his father said. Tommy pressed the reset button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they heard a loud clunk from somewhere behind the walls, the mechanical sound of heavy-duty switches engaging. The transfer switch was activating. Slowly, the lights in the maintenance room flickered and came back on. The hum of electricity returned. From upstairs, they could hear a distant cheer. Tommy and his father looked at each other, hardly believing it. We need to check if everything's working, Tommy said, his voice shaking slightly with adrenaline. They ran upstairs. The hallways were lit. The emergency exit signs were glowing. They could hear the air conditioning starting to kick back in, the familiar sound of air moving through vents. In the gymnasium, the overhead lights had come on. Students were cheering and high-fiving. Teachers looked relieved. Principal Harrison stood in the middle of it all, looking confused but grateful. Tommy and his father stood at the doorway, watching. Nobody noticed them. The janitor and his son, the two people who had actually fixed the problem, were invisible in the celebration. We should tell someone what happened, Tommy said. His father put a hand on his shoulder. Let's just make sure everything stays working first. Come on. They headed back downstairs to monitor the generator and make sure the systems remained stable. But as they walked, Tommy's father had a strange expression on his face. Pride mixed with worry, because he was realizing something. His son had just done something remarkable, something that revealed a talent and knowledge that shouldn't stay hidden. and that meant things were going to change whether they were ready for it or not. The power had been back on for 20 minutes. Students were filtering back to their classrooms, complaining good-naturedly about having to return to regular lessons. The crisis was over. Life at Lincoln High was returning to normal, except in the maintenance room where Tommy sat on an overturned bucket, his heart still racing. His father was checking the generator readings for the third time, making sure everything was stable. The diesel engine hummed steadily in the background. All the indicators showed green. Everything was working exactly as it should. "This is good," his father said, more to himself than to Tommy. "This is holding steady." Tommy nodded, but didn't say anything. Now that the adrenaline was wearing off, he was starting to think about what he'd actually done. He'd worked on the school's electrical system without permission, without any kind of license or certification. Just a 16-year-old kid who'd watched YouTube videos. Sure, it had worked, but they'd gotten lucky. Really lucky. If something had gone wrong, if he'd made a mistake, people could have gotten hurt. The school could have suffered more damage. His father could have gotten fired. "Dad," Tommy said quietly, "should we tell someone what happened? I mean, really tell them?" His father stopped checking the gauges and turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" "Well, Principal Harrison thinks the power just came back on its own. Or maybe he thinks the power company did something remotely. He doesn't know we fixed it. Doesn't know about the closed fuel valve or the reset button or any of it." "I know. So shouldn't we tell him?" His father sat down on another bucket facing Tommy. He looked tired. "Tommy, I don't know. I'm proud of what you did. You probably saved the school thousands of dollars and hours of problems, but—" He trailed off. "But I'm not supposed to touch any of this stuff." Tommy finished. "Right. And I'm not supposed to let anyone touch this stuff. There are rules, regulations, liability issues. If something had gone wrong, if you'd gotten hurt, the school district could be sued. I could lose my job. You could have been seriously injured." Tommy understood. He'd known all of this before he even suggested looking at the electrical panel, but in the moment, with the heat building and the crisis growing, it had seemed like the right thing to do. Now he wasn't so sure. "So what do we do?" Tommy asked. Before his father could answer, the maintenance room door opened. Both of them jumped slightly. Assistant Principal Rodriguez stood in the doorway, her phone in her hand. "There you are," she said. "I've been looking for you." Tommy's father stood up quickly. "Ms. Rodriguez, is there a problem with the power? Is something not working?" She stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. "Everything's working fine. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about." Tommy and his father exchanged glances. Rodriguez looked at them both carefully. "I was in the hallway outside the gymnasium when the power came back on. I saw you two come up from the basement. You looked pretty excited, relieved, like you knew something nobody else knew. Nobody said anything. And then I thought about timing." Rodriguez continued. "The power company said 6 hours, but it came back on in less than 2 hours. Actually, it came back on exactly 90 minutes after the outage started. That's awfully fast for an electrical company to diagnose and fix a complex problem." Tommy's father shifted his weight. "Maybe we got lucky. Maybe it was an easy fix." "Maybe," Rodriguez said. She pulled out her phone and started typing. "Or maybe the janitor and his son, who've been in the maintenance room this whole time, had something to do with it." The room fell silent except for the hum of the generator. "I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble," Rodriguez said, looking up from her phone. "But I need to know what actually happened, because Principal Harrison is about to call the power company back and thank them for their quick response. And if they didn't actually do anything, that's going to be a very confusing conversation." Tommy looked at his father. His father looked back at him. There was a long moment of silent communication between them. Finally, Tommy spoke up. "We fixed it. We figured out what was wrong and got the backup generator running and reset the transfer switch." Rodriguez didn't look surprised. "You fixed the school's electrical system?" "The backup system," Tommy clarified. "The main power from the city is still out, but the generator is running and providing power to the building through the transfer switch. And you know how to do all of this because—" "YouTube," Tommy said simply. "I've been teaching myself electrical engineering for a couple years now. I was interested in it." Rodriguez looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at his father. "Did you know he could do this?" "No, not until today. I had no idea." "So your 16-year-old son just independently learned complex electrical skills diagnosed a multi-point system failure, and fixed a problem that would have taken licensed electricians hours to solve. She said it like she was trying to make sense of it herself. "Yeah," Tommy said. "I know it sounds weird, and I know I shouldn't have touched anything. I'm not certified or licensed or anything. But people were getting hot and stressed, and my dad had been warning about these problems for months and nobody listened, and I just thought." "You thought you could help," Rodriguez interrupted. "And you did help." Tommy's father stepped forward. "Ms. Rodriguez, if there's going to be any consequences for this, they should fall on me. I'm the adult. I'm the employee." Tommy was just trying to do the right thing. Rodriguez held up her hand. "I'm not talking about consequences. I'm trying to figure out what to do with this information." She started pacing in the small room. "On one hand, you violated about 17 different safety protocols. On the other hand, you solved a major crisis that could have turned into a genuine emergency. I know we broke the rules," Tommy's father said. But sometimes rules don't account for every situation," Rodriguez finished. "Look, I'm not going to pretend I understand all the politics and procedures around this. But I do know that what happened today is remarkable. And it raises some serious questions about how this school operates." She turned to Tommy. "Those warnings your father filed, you know about those? He talks about them at dinner sometimes. The stuff that needs fixing but never gets fixed." "Right. And today all those ignored warnings resulted in a complete power failure. If you two hadn't been able to fix it, we'd still be sitting in a hot building waiting for help that wouldn't arrive for hours. Kids with medical conditions could have been in danger. The whole situation could have become a disaster." "What are you saying?" Tommy's father asked carefully. Rodriguez stopped pacing. "I'm saying that this story matters. Not just the part about Tommy fixing the electrical system. The whole story. The ignored maintenance requests. The budget cuts that resulted in deferred maintenance. The fact that it took a 16-year-old kid with internet access to solve a problem that trained professionals should have prevented." She pulled out her phone again. "I want to film this. I want you to explain what happened start to finish, what went wrong, how you fixed it, and why it should never have gotten to this point in the first place." Tommy's father looked alarmed. "I don't think that's a good idea. I could get in serious trouble." "Tommy could get in trouble." "You could," Rodriguez agreed. "Or this could be the thing that finally makes people pay attention. That makes the district take maintenance seriously. That gets the funding and support you've been asking for. Or I could just get fired for letting my kid mess with the electrical system." "Maybe. But I don't think so. Not if we control the narrative. Not if we make it clear that this happened because of systemic failures, not because of one person's mistake." Tommy watched the two adults debate. Part of him wanted to just hide, to let everyone think the power company had fixed everything and go back to being invisible. The janitor's kid who nobody paid attention to. But another part of him was angry. Angry at all the ignored warnings. Angry at the systems that prioritized budgets over safety. Angry at the way his father's expertise and concerns had been dismissed for years. "I'll do it," Tommy said. Both adults turned to look at him. "I'll explain what happened. On camera. But only if we can tell the whole truth. Not just the part about me fixing it, everything. All the warnings that got ignored. All the ways the school failed to maintain its own systems. All of it." His father started to protest, but Rodriguez nodded. "Deal, we tell the whole truth." "Wait," Tommy's father said. "Tommy, think about this. If this goes public, everything changes. For you, for me, for our family. People will have opinions. There could be backlash. Or," Tommy said quietly, "maybe things could actually get better. Maybe other schools will pay attention to their maintenance staff. Maybe you won't have to send warning after warning that nobody reads." His father's expression softened. He was seeing his son differently now. Not as a kid who needed protection, but as a young man who understood consequences and was willing to accept them. "Okay," his father said finally. "But we do this together. We both explain what happened." Rodriguez smiled. "Perfect. Let's start from the beginning." She held up her phone and hit record. In that moment, standing in the maintenance room with the generator humming in the background, none of them knew how many people would see this video. They didn't know it would be shared thousands of times. They didn't know it would start conversations in school districts across the country. All they knew was that they were about to tell a truth that had been ignored for too long. And sometimes telling the truth is the bravest thing you can do. The camera on Rodriguez's phone was rolling. Tommy could see his own nervous face reflected in the black screen. His father stood next to him, one hand resting protectively on Tommy's shoulder. "Okay," Rodriguez said from behind the phone. "Just tell me what happened. Start with the power going out." Tommy took a breath. "So I was in chemistry class when the lights started flickering. I knew something was wrong because my dad had been warning the school about electrical problems for months. When everything went dark and the backup generator didn't kick in, I figured it was bad." His father picked up the story. "I'd submitted 3 separate work orders about the electrical system, February, April, and July. Each time I explained that the transfer switch was old and needed inspection, that the backup generator hadn't been serviced properly, that we were one failure away from a serious problem. Each time the requests got marked as pending and nothing happened." Tommy continued. "When the power went out, I came down here to see if I could help. I've been teaching myself about electrical systems for about 2 years. Just watching videos online, reading articles, learning how things work. I thought maybe I could at least figure out what was wrong." Rodriguez zoomed in slightly. "What did you find?" "The backup generator wasn't running. That was the first problem. It's supposed to start automatically when city power fails, but it didn't. We checked it and found out that the fuel shutoff valve had been closed. Back in January, a contractor serviced the generator and closed the valve for winter storage, but nobody ever reopened it. So when the power failed, the generator tried to start but couldn't get fuel." His father's voice was heavy. "That should have been caught during regular testing. But we haven't been doing regular testing. There's supposed to be a monthly test of the backup generator, but that got cut from the maintenance schedule 2 years ago because of budget issues. Once we got the generator running," Tommy said, "the building still didn't have power. That's when I figured out the transfer switch was in fault mode. It has a safety feature where if it detects a problem, it won't switch over automatically. There's a reset button on the control panel. I pressed it and the switch engaged. Power came back on." Rodriguez lowered the phone for a moment. "And this whole process took how long?" "About 20 minutes from when we started working on it," Tommy said. "But we had to figure out what was wrong first. That took longer." "The power company said it would be 6 hours minimum," Rodriguez pointed out. "You solved it in under 2 hours." Tommy shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah, but I got lucky. I happened to have watched videos about this exact kind of system, and the problems were relatively simple once we found them. A real electrician probably would have figured it out faster." "Maybe," Rodriguez said. "But a real electrician wasn't here?" "You were." She hit record again. "Okay, now I want you to show me the maintenance requests, the ones that got ignored." Tommy's father pulled out his phone and opened his email. He showed the camera each of the work orders he'd submitted. February 18th. Transfer switch showing intermittent fault codes. Request inspection by certified electrician. Status pending review. April 3rd. Backup generator performance declining. Last professional service was 14 months ago. Recommend immediate servicing. Status pending review. July 22nd. Electrical system instability. Multiple unexplained power fluctuations. Serious concern about system reliability. Status pending review. "These are the official requests," Tommy's father explained to the camera. "But I also mentioned these problems verbally, in meetings with the head of facilities, in emails to the district maintenance coordinator. I tried everything I could think of to get someone to pay attention." Rodriguez's voice came from behind the phone. "And what happened when you raised these concerns?" "I was told they'd look into it, that it would be addressed in the next budget cycle, that these things take time." The usual responses. His father's frustration was clear. But nobody seemed to understand that electrical systems don't wait for budget cycles. They fail when they fail. And we got lucky today that it failed on a day when we could actually do something about it. Rodriguez stopped recording. "This is good, this is important, but I want to do one more thing." She thought for a moment. "I want to film the electrical panel, and I want Tommy to explain what he did, step by step. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded, though his stomach was churning with nerves. They moved over to the main electrical panel. Rodriguez started filming again. Okay, Tommy said, pointing at the panel. This is the main breaker. When city power is flowing, this is what distributes electricity throughout the building. When city power fails, the system is supposed to automatically switch to the backup generator. He pointed to a thick cable leading away from the panel. This goes to the transfer switch. That's the device that actually switches between city power and generator power. The transfer switch is supposed to be automatic, but it has safety features. If it detects any kind of fault or problem, it won't switch. You have to manually reset it. Tommy showed the control panel with its red fault light. This was showing a fault. I don't know exactly what triggered it. Could have been the power surge when city power failed. Could have been that the generator didn't start immediately when it was supposed to. But either way, it was stuck in fault mode. And you knew to reset it because? Rodriguez prompted. I watched a video about transfer switches a few months ago. It covered troubleshooting and common problems. One of the things it mentioned was fault codes and reset procedures. I just remembered it. His father added, the thing is, what Tommy did was technically correct, but it was also dangerous. These voltages can kill you if you don't know what you're doing. We got lucky that nothing went wrong. But you did know what you were doing, Rodriguez said. At least enough to do it safely. I was careful, Tommy said. I didn't touch anything that was live. I used the flashlight instead of getting close to any bare wires. I treated it like it could hurt me because it could. But yeah, I was also scared the whole time. Rodriguez stopped recording and played back some of the footage, watching it with a critical eye. Tommy and his father waited nervously. This is incredible, she said finally. Do you understand what you've captured here? This isn't just a feel-good story about a smart kid. This is documentation of systemic failure. This is proof that the school district's maintenance policies are putting students and staff at risk. Tommy's father looked worried again. You're going to share this publicly? I want to, Rodriguez said, but only if you're both okay with it. I won't post anything without your permission. There was a long silence. Tommy could hear the generator humming in the next room, could hear the distant sound of students in the hallways above them, going about their day, completely unaware of the conversation happening in the basement. What do you think will happen if you post it? Tommy asked. Rodriguez considered the question. Honestly, I don't know. Best case scenario, it gets seen by people who can make changes. The school board, the superintendent, maybe even parents who will demand better maintenance policies. Maybe it leads to real improvements. And worst case? Tommy's father asked. Worst case, it goes viral for the wrong reasons. People focus on the wrong parts of the story. Or the school district gets defensive and comes after you. She looked at Tommy's father seriously. I can't promise this won't cause problems for you. But I can promise that what's documented on this video is the truth. And sometimes the truth needs to be told, even when it's uncomfortable. Tommy thought about his father coming home exhausted night after night. Thought about the times he'd overheard his parents arguing about money, about whether his dad should look for a different job, about whether the stress was worth it. Thought about all the times his father had tried to do the right thing and been ignored. Post it, Tommy said. His father looked at him surprised. Tommy, are you sure? Dad, you've been trying to get people to listen for years. Nothing's worked. Maybe this will. And even if it doesn't, even if it causes problems, at least we tried. At least we told the truth. His father's eyes got watery. He pulled Tommy into a tight hug. When did you get so grown up? I learned from watching you, Tommy said into his father's shoulder. You never gave up trying to do the right thing. Even when nobody listened, I'm just following your example. They pulled apart. Tommy's father wiped his eyes and turned to Rodriguez. Okay, post it. Tell the whole story. Rodriguez nodded. I will, but I'm going to add something at the end. A message directly to the school board and the district administration. Because this isn't just about your school. This is about every school that's deferring maintenance and ignoring the people who know what needs to be fixed. She spent a few minutes on her phone, editing the videos together and adding text overlays. Tommy and his father watched over her shoulder as she worked. When she was done, the video told a complete story. It started with Tommy explaining what had happened, then his father showing the ignored maintenance requests, then Tommy demonstrating his understanding of the electrical system, and finally, Rodriguez had added her own statement at the end. This is Assistant Principal Rodriguez at Lincoln High School. What you've just watched should never have happened. Not because these two people did anything wrong, but because our school's electrical system should have been properly maintained in the first place. This is what happens when we ignore the experts who work in our buildings every day. This is what happens when we defer maintenance to save money in the short term. And this is what happens when budget constraints are prioritized over student and staff safety. We can do better. We must do better. And it starts with listening to the people who've been trying to warn us all along. That's perfect, Tommy's father said quietly. Rodriguez looked at them both. Last chance to change your minds. Tommy and his father looked at each other. Some kind of understanding passed between them. They were in this together now. Whatever happened next, they'd face it as a team. Post it, they said together. Rodriguez's finger hovered over the share button. Then she pressed it. The video uploaded to her social media accounts. Posted. Public. Out in the world. For a moment, nothing happened. The three of them just stood there in the maintenance room staring at the phone. Then the first comment appeared. Then another. Then 5 more. Then 20. The video was starting to spread, and there was no taking it back now. The first hour was slow. Rodriguez's video got a few hundred views, mostly from parents and staff who followed her on social media. The comments were supportive but not overwhelming. Tommy went back to class trying to focus on algebra even though his mind was racing. His father returned to his regular duties, mopping floors and checking that the generator continued running smoothly. By the time school ended that afternoon, the video had 3,000 views. Tommy's mom called during his walk home. Did something happen at school today? I'm seeing a video about a power outage. Yeah, there was an outage. It's kind of a long story. Tommy, is that you in the video? With your father? He'd been dreading this conversation. Yeah, Mom, that's us. There was a pause. We need to talk when you get home. The tone in her voice made Tommy's stomach drop. She wasn't angry exactly, but she wasn't happy either. When he walked through the door of their small apartment, both his parents were sitting at the kitchen table. His father must have left work early. The video was playing on his mother's laptop. Sit down, his mom said. Tommy sat. He could see the view counter on the video climbing. 5,000 now. His mother closed the laptop. Explain to me what happened today. All of it, so Tommy did. He told her about the power outage, about figuring out the generator problem, about the transfer switch. He told her about the maintenance requests his father had filed, about Rodriguez and the decision to make the video public. When he finished, his mother was quiet for a long moment. You could have been hurt, she said finally. Working with electricity without training, without supervision. Tommy, you could have been killed. I was careful, Mom. I knew what I was doing. You knew what YouTube taught you, she corrected. That's not the same as real training. That's not the same as understanding all the dangers. Tommy's father spoke up. He's right, though. He was careful, and he did know what he was doing. More than I did, honestly. His mother turned to her husband. That's not the point. The point is that our son put himself at risk. And now there's a video of it spreading across the internet. Do you understand what this could mean for our family? What do you mean? Tommy asked. I mean that your father's job could be at risk. I mean that the school district could decide to make an example of him for allowing an unauthorized person to work on their electrical system. I mean that we could be sued if something had gone wrong. I mean that our lives could become very complicated very quickly. The room fell silent. Tommy hadn't thought about it that way. He'd been so focused on doing the right thing, on helping, on making sure people knew the truth. He hadn't considered all the ways this could backfire on his family. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I was just trying to help. His mother's expression softened. I know you were, and I'm proud of you for wanting to help. But Tommy, the world doesn't always reward people for doing the right thing. Sometimes it punishes them. His father reached across the table and took her hand. Maybe. But maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time people will actually pay attention. Or maybe they'll just look for someone to blame, she countered. They sat in tense silence until Tommy's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again, and again. Text messages coming in rapid fire. It was Kevin. Dude, your video has 50K views. Tommy opened social media on his phone. Kevin was right. In the few hours since Rodriguez had posted it, the video had exploded. 50,000 views and climbing. Comments were flooding in. Shares were multiplying, he showed his parents. His mother put her head in her hands. His father just stared at the numbers. "This is really happening," his father whispered. By the next morning, the video had 500,000 views. Tommy's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. It was a number he didn't recognize. He let it go to voicemail. Then another call came in. And another. By the time he got to school, he had 15 missed calls and dozens of unread messages. The local news was parked outside Lincoln High. Camera crews and reporters were trying to interview students as they arrived. Tommy saw them and immediately turned around, heading for the back entrance. He almost made it. "Excuse me, are you Tommy? The student from the video?" A reporter had spotted him. She was rushing over with a cameraman in tow. Tommy froze, unsure what to do. "I don't want to talk," he managed to say. "Just a quick question. How does it feel to be called a hero?" "I'm not a hero. I just helped my dad." But more reporters were converging now, having heard the commotion. Tommy felt trapped. Then someone grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the school entrance. It was Rodriguez. "No interviews without parent permission," she told the reporters firmly. "He's a minor." "Back up, please." She got Tommy inside the building and into her office. "Are you okay?" Tommy was shaking. There were so many of them. "How did they even know who I am?" "Your name is in the video comments. People figured it out." She looked worried. "This got bigger than I expected." "Way bigger. The video's been shared by national news outlets, education policy groups. Even some politicians are talking about it." "Is that good or bad?" "I don't know yet," Rodriguez admitted. "Principal Harrison wants to see you and your father in his office. He's been dealing with the district superintendent all morning." Tommy's stomach sank. "Are we in trouble?" "I honestly don't know." They walked to the principal's office together. Tommy's father was already there, still wearing his maintenance uniform. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept. Principal Harrison sat behind his desk, his face unreadable. The district superintendent was on speakerphone. "Tommy, have a seat," Harrison said. Tommy sat next to his father. Rodriguez stood near the door. The superintendent's voice came through the phone. "I've watched the video. Multiple times. I've also reviewed the maintenance requests that were filed, and I've spent the morning on calls with our legal team, our insurance company, and the school board." Here it comes, Tommy thought. They're going to fire my dad. Maybe sue us. Maybe press charges. What you did yesterday was unauthorized, potentially dangerous, and completely outside proper procedures, the superintendent continued. Tommy's father gripped the armrests of his chair. "However," the superintendent said, "it also prevented what could have been a serious emergency. And more importantly, it exposed significant failures in our maintenance oversight systems, failures that are my responsibility and the responsibility of district leadership." Tommy and his father exchanged confused glances. "The school board held an emergency meeting this morning," the superintendent continued. "We've decided on several actions. First, we're immediately implementing a comprehensive review of all maintenance requests across the district. Any pending items will be addressed within 30 days or escalated to the board directly." Harrison's eyebrows went up. This was apparently news to him too. "Second, we're establishing a new protocol for facility staff to report safety concerns directly to the board, bypassing the normal chain of command if necessary. Your father's warnings should never have been ignored, and we're putting systems in place to make sure that doesn't happen again." Tommy's father leaned forward. "What does this mean for my job?" There was a pause on the phone. "It means we're promoting you to district facilities manager. We need someone who actually understands these systems and isn't afraid to speak up about problems. Someone who's proven they take safety seriously." "That's you." Tommy's father looked stunned. I don't know what to say."